The people of Dust Creek rarely spoke about Ethan Walker anymore. Years ago, everyone in town knew his name. He had a family, a good home, and many friends. But life had changed. One terrible accident took everything from him. His wife was gone. His young son was gone. After that day, Ethan stopped talking to people. Little by little, the town forgot him. Now he lived alone in a small wooden house near the edge of the desert. Every morning Ethan followed the same routine. He woke up before sunrise, drank black coffee, and walked outside to check his old equipment. He repaired broken machines and sold scrap metal to earn money. The work was hard, but it kept his mind busy. At night he sat alone on his porch and watched the stars. The stars reminded him that the universe was much bigger than his pain. One evening, dark clouds covered the sky. Strong winds rushed across the desert. The weather station warned everyone to stay indoors because a powerful sandstorm was coming. The people of Dust Creek locked their doors and closed their windows. But Ethan was not afraid of storms. He had lived through many of them. When he noticed one of his old storage units standing open near the desert ridge, he grabbed a flashlight and went outside. The storm grew stronger with every step. Sand hit his face like tiny needles. The wind howled so loudly that it sounded like distant cries. Ethan pulled his coat tighter and continued walking. Suddenly he stopped. For a moment he thought he heard something strange. He listened carefully, but only the wind answered him. He shook his head and started walking again. Then he heard it a second time. "Help me?" The voice was weak and distant. Ethan froze. His heart began to beat faster. There was no one living near this part of the desert. No traveler would be outside during a storm like this. He pointed his flashlight toward the dunes, searching for movement. Nothing was there. The desert looked empty. Again the voice came. "Please, help." This time Ethan knew he was not imagining it. He followed the sound through the storm. The voice seemed to come from beneath the sand itself. That made no sense. Yet every time the voice spoke, he could hear it more clearly. He climbed a dune and reached a small area where the sand looked disturbed, as if something had recently been buried there. Ethan dropped to his knees and started digging. The wind fought against him. Sand filled the hole almost as fast as he removed it, but he refused to stop. The voice was growing weaker. Whoever was trapped down there did not have much time left. Ethan dug faster, throwing sand behind him with both hands. A few minutes later his fingers struck something hard. Metal. He brushed away more sand and revealed a smooth silver surface. Strange symbols covered it from top to bottom. Ethan had never seen a language like it before. The symbols glowed faintly beneath the storm clouds. A cold feeling ran through his body. This was not human technology. The voice suddenly cried out again. "Help!" Ethan searched around the metal object until he noticed a small blue hand sticking out of the sand nearby. His eyes widened. The hand had only 4 fingers. It was clearly not human. Without wasting another second, he dug around the buried figure. Slowly, a small body appeared. It looked like a young girl, but her skin was pale blue and small, glowing marks covered her arms. She was unconscious and barely breathing. Ethan carefully lifted her from the sand. The moment he touched her, her eyes opened. Bright silver eyes stared directly at him. Fear filled her face. She grabbed his arm with surprising strength. Then she whispered 3 words that sent a chill through Ethan's spine. "They found me." Before Ethan could ask what she meant, a bright light flashed across the stormy sky above them. And somewhere high above the planet, something enormous was watching. Ethan quickly carried the alien girl back to his small house. The sandstorm was getting stronger and he knew they could not stay outside. The girl was weak and shaking in his arms. Her silver eyes opened and closed as if she was fighting to stay awake. When Ethan finally reached home, he locked every door and covered the windows. Something about her warning made him feel uneasy. The girl lay on an old couch near the fireplace. Ethan cleaned the cuts on her arms and gave her water. For several hours she slept without moving. Ethan sat nearby and watched her carefully. He had many questions, but he knew she needed rest. Outside, the storm slowly faded, leaving the desert silent once again. Late that night, the girl finally opened her eyes. She looked around the room with fear. For a moment, she seemed ready to run. Then she noticed Ethan sitting quietly beside her. He raised his hands to show he meant no harm. The girl relaxed slightly and took a deep breath. Her voice was soft when she finally spoke. "My name is Lyra," she said. Ethan nodded. "I'm Ethan." For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan asked the question that had been on his mind since the desert. He wanted to know who buried her and why. The moment he asked, Lyra's expression changed. Fear returned to her eyes. She looked toward the dark window as if expecting someone to appear outside. "It was my own people," she whispered. Ethan stared at her in shock. He could not understand how anyone could bury a young girl alive. Lyra explained that she belonged to a powerful alien race known as the Valari. To most worlds, the Valari appeared peaceful and wise. But behind their perfect image, many secrets existed. Some leaders cared only about power. Lyra revealed that she had discovered something important. She had learned information that certain Valari leaders wanted hidden forever. When she refused to stay silent, they accused her of being a traitor. Instead of giving her a trial, they decided to make her disappear. They buried her deep beneath the desert and left her to die. Ethan listened carefully. Every word made the situation more dangerous. If powerful aliens wanted Lyra dead, they would not stop searching for her. He suddenly remembered the bright light he had seen in the sky during the storm. A cold feeling settled in his chest. What if the people hunting her were already on Earth? Before he could ask another question, Lyra touched the strange collar around her neck. Small blue lights appeared across its surface. Ethan watched in surprise as symbols began glowing in the air above it. The collar was not just a restraint device. It was holding secret information. Lyra looked at the floating symbols and swallowed nervously. "This is why they buried me," she said. Ethan stepped closer. "What's inside it?" For several seconds, Lyra remained silent. Then she looked directly into his eyes. "The future of your world." The room suddenly felt colder. At that exact moment, a strange red light flashed outside the window. Ethan rushed to look. Far across the desert, 3 glowing figures were moving toward his house. And they were getting closer. Ethan stared through the window as the 3 glowing figures moved across the desert. Their red lights flashed through the darkness like hunting eyes. He immediately pulled the curtain closed and stepped away from the window. Lyra's face turned pale the moment she saw his expression. She already knew who was outside. The people hunting her had finally found her location. "They are Valari trackers," Lyra said quietly. "They never stop searching." Ethan looked toward the old hunting rifle hanging on the wall. He knew a normal weapon would probably be useless against advanced aliens. Still, he refused to let them take Lyra. For the first time in many years, he felt responsible for someone again. He was not going to abandon her. No matter what happened, he would stand beside her. Outside, the glowing light stopped moving. A deep silence filled the desert. The silence felt worse than the storm. Ethan slowly opened the door and stepped onto the porch. The night air felt cold against his skin. He scanned the darkness, but the glowing figures had disappeared. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. Suddenly, a loud metallic sound echoed behind the house. Ethan rushed around the building and froze. One of the trackers was standing there. The alien was nearly 8 feet tall. Its black armor reflected the moonlight. A glowing red visor covered its face. In its hand was a strange weapon that hummed with energy. The tracker stared directly at Ethan without saying a word. The air itself seemed heavy around the creature. Then the tracker spoke. "Return the fugitive." Its voice sounded cold and mechanical. Ethan stood his ground. He had spent years feeling broken and forgotten. He had spent years hiding from the world. But something inside him had changed the moment he pulled Lyra from the sand. He looked straight at the alien and shook his head. "No." The tracker raised its weapon. At that exact moment, a bright blue pulse shot from inside the house. The blast struck the alien's armor and threw it backward. Ethan turned in surprise. Lyra was standing in the doorway. Her glowing collar was shining brighter than ever. Small streams of blue energy circled around her hands. "We need to leave now," she shouted. The fallen tracker was already trying to stand. Without hesitation, Ethan grabbed his truck keys. The two rushed toward his old vehicle parked beside the house. More red lights suddenly appeared across the desert. Not 3 this time. There were dozens. The hunters had surrounded the entire area. Ethan started the engine and slammed his foot on the gas. The truck raced across the desert while energy blasts exploded behind them. Dust filled the air as the vehicle bounced over rocks and dunes. Lyra looked back through the rear window and her expression grew darker with every second. Ethan noticed her fear. "What is it?" he asked. Lyra swallowed hard before answering. "The trackers are not here just for me." Ethan felt his stomach tighten. "Then why are they here?" Lyra looked toward the stars above Earth. Then she revealed the truth. "Because my people are preparing to invade your world." The truck fell silent. And far above the planet, hidden beyond the clouds, a massive alien fleet was already moving into position. Ethan drove through the desert as fast as the old truck could go. Behind them, red lights continued to chase through the darkness. The alien trackers were closing the distance every minute. Dust filled the air while the engine struggled against the rough ground. Lyra sat quietly beside him, watching strange symbols move across her glowing collar. She seemed deeply worried about something. After several hours, they reached an abandoned mining station hidden between rocky hills. Very few people knew the place existed. Ethan had worked there years ago before the mine was shut down. The old buildings were damaged, but they still provided shelter. For the moment, it was the safest place they could find. Ethan parked the truck inside a broken warehouse and carefully closed the entrance. Inside the station, Lyra finally revealed the information stored in her collar. A large blue hologram appeared in the air. Ethan stared at it in shock. It showed hundreds of alien ships moving toward Earth. Some were larger than entire cities. Others carried thousands of soldiers. The invasion was not coming in the future, it had already begun. Ethan felt his heart sink. "How long do we have?" he asked. Lyra looked at the hologram. "Less than 3 days." The room became silent. For a moment, Ethan felt hopeless. Earth had no idea what was coming. Ordinary people were living their normal lives while a massive alien fleet moved closer every hour. But then something changed inside him. For years, he had hidden from the world because of his pain. Now millions of lives depended on someone taking action. He could not run anymore. Using an old communication system at the mining station, Ethan contacted a former friend named Marcus. Marcus had once served in the military and now worked with Earth's planetary defense network. At first, Marcus thought Ethan was joking, but after seeing Lyra and the hologram data, his expression changed completely. He immediately realized the danger was real. Within hours, secret messages were sent across the globe. Scientists, military leaders, and government officials gathered to study the information. Many were shocked to learn that an alien girl had risked her life to warn humanity. Some leaders wanted to arrest Lyra. Others believed she was telling the truth. As arguments continued, the invasion fleet moved closer. The next day, strange objects began appearing in Earth's skies. News channels reported unusual lights and unknown signals coming from orbit. Panic slowly spread among the population. People sensed that something was wrong. Meanwhile, Ethan stayed beside Lyra as experts worked around the clock. Together, they searched for any weakness in the enemy fleet. Late that night, Lyra finally found something important hidden inside the invasion plans. One massive command ship controlled most of the fleet's systems. If the command ship fell, the invasion force would lose coordination. It was risky, but it gave humanity a chance. For the first time, hope appeared. Then every screen inside the mining station suddenly turned red. A warning signal echoed through the building. Marcus looked at the monitor and his face went pale. "They've arrived," he whispered. Ethan looked up. Outside the station, the night sky was no longer filled with stars. It was filled with alien warships. The sky above Earth was covered with enormous alien warships. Across the world, people looked up in fear as the dark ships blocked the sunlight. Emergency broadcasts appeared on every screen. Military forces prepared for battle, but everyone knew the enemy possessed technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. The future of Earth now depended on a single plan: a plan built around information hidden inside Lyra's collar. Inside the command center, Ethan, Lyra, and Marcus studied the enemy fleet one final time. The massive command ship remained the key target. If it could be disabled, the entire invasion force would lose communication. Human pilots volunteered for the dangerous mission, knowing many might never return. Yet nobody backed away. For the first time, humanity stood united against a common threat. As the invasion began, bright flashes filled the sky. Human fighters launched from bases around the world. Missiles and energy weapons crossed through the clouds. The battle was unlike anything in history. Cities watched the fight unfold above them. Despite their weaker technology, human forces continued attacking. Their courage surprised many of the Valari commanders. Meanwhile, Ethan joined a small strike team heading toward the command ship. Lyra guided them through secret routes she had discovered in the fleet's systems. Every minute brought new dangers. Enemy fighters chased them through space while powerful weapons fired from every direction. Several ships were destroyed, but the team kept moving forward. Finally, they reached the giant command vessel. The ship was larger than a mountain. Its metal surface stretched for miles. Ethan and the others entered through a maintenance section. Inside, endless corridors glowed with blue light. Security drones quickly detected them. A fierce battle followed as the team pushed deeper into the ship. Lyra used her knowledge to unlock sealed doors, while Ethan protected her from enemy soldiers. At last they reached the central control chamber. The room was enormous. Hundreds of glowing screens covered the walls. In the center stood the Valari leader responsible for the invasion. He immediately recognized Lyra. "You should have stayed buried," he said coldly. Lyra stepped forward without fear. "You betrayed your own people." The leader laughed and activated the ship's defenses. Alarms echoed throughout the chamber. Ethan knew they had only seconds left. Without hesitation, he rushed toward the main control system. Enemy soldiers opened fire. One blast struck Ethan's shoulder, sending him to the floor. Pain shot through his body, but he refused to stop. Using the access codes hidden in Lyra's collar, Ethan activated a system override. Every screen in the chamber flashed red. Across space, the invasion fleet suddenly lost contact with the command ship. Confusion spread among the enemy forces. Ships began drifting out of formation. Humanity immediately launched a massive counterattack. The command vessel shook violently. Warning alarms filled the air. The invasion was collapsing. The Valari leader realized he had lost. Moments later, the giant ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Across Earth, people watched as the remaining alien fleet retreated into deep space. Humanity had survived. Against impossible odds, Earth had won. Weeks later, celebrations were held around the world. Ethan returned to Dust Creek, but this time everything was different. The man everyone had forgotten was now known by billions. Schools taught his story. News channels spoke his name. Children called him a hero. One evening, Ethan sat on his porch watching the stars. Lyra stood beside him, smiling quietly. For the first time in many years, Ethan felt peace. He had lost much in life, but he had found a new purpose. The universe had almost forgotten him. But when humanity needed him most, the forgotten man became the man who saved the world.